Previously on World History and Geography.
During the Tang and Song dynasties from 618 to 1279 CE, China became the most populated and advanced empire on Earth. Chinese inventions such as gunpowder and the magnetic compass spread to other areas along trade routes like the Silk Road. While the Chinese prospered, a great people far to the north were also gaining strength: the Mongols.
And now, our feature presentation.
Do you know when the Mongols ruled China?
We'll get to that later. But first, a huge belt of dry grassland called... Excuse me, you just can't walk through here. Tourists. A huge belt of dry grassland called the steppe stretches across the landmass of Eurasia. The significance of the steppe to neighboring civilizations was twofold. First, it served as a land trade route connecting the east and the west. Second, it was home to nomadic peoples who frequently swept down on their neighbors to plunder, loot, and conquer. The eastern steppe, covering the area of present-day Mongolia, was the first home of the nomadic groups the Huns, the Turks, and the Mongols. This area is a harsh and difficult place to live, with bitterly cold winters and brutally hot summers. Very little rainfall, so little vegetation except grass grows. The nomadic peoples were pastoralists. That is, they herded domesticated animals. So I guess we could call them herdsmen.
I'm a herdsman.
They were constantly on the move, searching for good pasture to feed their herds. They didn't wander around aimlessly. They followed a familiar seasonal pattern and returned regularly to the same campsites. Battles frequently arose among nomadic groups over grassland and water rights to these sites. Asian nomads practically lived on horseback as they followed their huge herds over the steppe. They depended on their animals for food, clothing, and housing. Their diet consisted of meat and mare's milk. Yummy. They wore clothing made of skins and wool, and they lived in portable felt tents called yurts. Steppe nomads traveled together in kinship groups called clans. The members of each clan claimed to be descended from a common ancestor. Different clans sometimes came together when they needed a large force to attack a common enemy or raid their settled neighbors. They were sometimes tempted by the rich land and relative wealth of townspeople and took what they wanted by force. As a result, settled peoples lived in a constant fear of raids from the nomadic barbarians. Around the year 1162 CE, a Mongol... Wait, are you going to keep doing that every time I say Mongols? Or Mongol? No more. A Mongol baby... Good. A Mongol baby was born clutching a clot of blood. Some saw this as a sign from heaven that he was destined to be a great warrior, and boy, were they right. His name was Temujin, which translates to iron worker, and he would grow up to be known throughout the world as Genghis Khan.
I, Temujin, chief of all Mongols.
Wait, is that iconic American film actor John Wayne portraying Genghis Khan?
Well, don't fret about that, Pilgrim.
We need to do better than that. Maybe even better than that. That's better. Around 1200 CE, Temujin sought to unify the Mongols under his leadership. He fought and defeated his rivals one by one. In 1206, Temujin accepted the title of Genghis Khan, or universal ruler of the Mongol clans. I know, Captain Kirk, a lot of people didn't like Khan because, over the next 21 years, Genghis led the Mongols in conquering much of Asia. His first goal was China, but then his attention turned to the Islamic region west of Mongolia. Angered by the murder of Mongol traders and an ambassador, Genghis launched a campaign of terror across Central Asia. The Mongols destroyed one city after another. By 1225 CE, Central Asia was under Mongol control. Several characteristics lay behind Genghis Khan's stunning success as a conqueror. First, he was a brilliant organizer. He assembled his Mongol warriors into a mighty fighting force, with soldiers rising through the ranks due to their merit, not their birth. Second, Genghis Khan was a gifted strategist. He used various tricks to confuse his enemy. Sometimes a small Mongol cavalry unit would attack, then pretend to gallop away in flight. The enemy usually gave chase, then the rest of the Mongol army would appear suddenly and slaughter the surprised enemy forces. Finally, Genghis Khan used cruelty as a weapon. He believed in terrifying his enemies into surrender. If a city refused to open its gates to him, he might kill the entire population when he finally captured the place, or use the captives on the front lines for the next siege. The terror the Mongols inspired spread ahead of their armies, which led many towns to surrender without a fight. Many of the areas invaded by the Mongols never recovered. The populations of some cities were wiped out. Mongol soldiers were superb horsemen and archers, having spent all their lives in the saddle. By changing horses, soldiers could stay in the saddle for up to 10 days and nights at a time. When charging toward a target, they covered as much as 120 miles a day. The Khan and other leaders even had mobile yurts pulled by teams of oxen. I would love to have one of those. If food was scarce, a Mongol soldier might make a small gash in the neck of one of the horses and sustain himself by drinking the blood. The key to Mongol horsemanship was the stirrup, which was invented on the steppe in the 2nd century BCE. Stirrups enabled a mounted warrior to stand, turn, and shoot arrows behind him. As the empire spread, so did Genghis Khan's seed. In conquered areas, he would often take a wife or more. As a result of Khan's and his sons' and grandsons' prodigious procreation, genetic research shows that possibly 16 million men could probably claim descent from Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan died in 1227, not from violence, but from illness. Hey, did you know we still don't know where Genghis Khan was buried? Because every person in his burial party was executed to keep the location of the tomb a secret. Now you know. Wait a second. No, we don't. Anyway, after Genghis Khan's death, his sons and grandsons continued the campaign of conquest. Armies under their leadership drove south, east, and west out of Inner Asia. His successors continued to expand his empire. In less than 50 years, the Mongols conquered territory from China to Poland. In doing so, they created the largest continuous land empire in history. By 1260 CE, the Mongols had divided their huge empire into 4 regions, or khanates. These were the Khanate of the Golden Horde, Khanate of the Great Khan, the Ilkhanate, and the Khanate in Central Asia that I don't know how to pronounce. A descendant of Genghis Khan ruled each Khanate. While ferocious in war, the Mongols were quite tolerant in peace. They rarely imposed their beliefs or way of life on those they conquered. From the mid-1200s to the mid-1300s, the Mongols imposed stability and law and order across much of Asia. This period is sometimes called the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol peace. The Mongols guaranteed safe passage for trade caravans, travelers, and missionaries from one end of the empire to the other. Trade between Europe and Asia had never been more active. Ideas and inventions, and even diseases, traveled along with the trade goods. To help administer such a huge empire, the Mongols had their own version of the Pony Express to send messages great distances. The Mongol Empire would be associated with another famous Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan.
I, Temujin, chief of all Mongols,